Hi everyone. You know those days when you sit down in front of the computer and you stare at the same thing for like an hour and you've typed absolutely nothing? Even when you really wanted to. You wanted to get this task done, you know it's going to have an impact on your business, it's going to make your life easier, and you just stare and you're like, you just can't do it. That's a task initiation problem. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, if you don't know me, I am Shannon Schroeder, the F-Bomb Coach, and I help ADHD businesswomen build sustainable systems for their businesses and their lives. So let's get into task initiation today. So task initiation is something that every human being struggles with, especially if it's something that you don't like to do. If you don't like to do laundry, you're going to have a harder time getting it done. If you don't like to cook, you're going to have a harder time putting yourself in the kitchen to cook a meal. That's true of everybody. The difference is the advice you get are things like, you have to try harder. Just push through that. Just do it. That advice works for a neurotypical brain. Neurotypical people can just say, okay, look, I don't really like to do it. I'm just going to get it over with. And that works. That doesn't work for people who are neurodivergent. They can sit there and they can say, okay, just push through, just do it. And they're sitting there and they don't know how to make themselves do it. That is a skill that needs to be built. That is a skill that needs to be improved. So what do? A lot of times you fall back on, well, I'm just not motivated. Task initiation and motivation are two different things. Do they overlap? Yes. Sometimes you can use motivation to get you over the task initiation hump, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you think it's just motivation and it really is task initiation, it's still not going to work. For example, let's say your sister is having a baby and you love to knit. Like, it is truly a hobby that you enjoy doing. You want to knit a blanket for the new baby. This is someone that you genuinely care about. You love your sister. You want to knit. You enjoy knitting. And you have the yarn and you're sitting there and you just can't start. There is a mental block. You just can't start. So it's not a motivation thing. You want to do this. It is something that you're looking forward to doing, but you can't physically get started. That is task initiation running into a roadblock. That's what you need to work on. So you need to start looking at what are some tools and strategies that I can use to get me over just that first hump. Like I said, sometimes it is going to be motivation. Sometimes it's going to be, talking yourself to, but once I get this started and then I can see what it's going to look like, I'm going to feel better. Or the first row is always the hardest. Let me just get the first row done. For a lot of people, I talk about just like doing a 5-minute timer. A 5-minute timer, and it seems really silly to be like, I'm not going to do anything just for 5 minutes, but you will. And because as humans, we can pretty much convince ourselves to do anything for 5 minutes, even if it is something we hate. And if task initiation is your problem, telling yourself, just do it for 5 minutes. When the timer goes off, if you really still hate where you are, you stop and you take a break. It doesn't mean that you're walking away forever. It doesn't mean that you're never coming back to it. It means that you may have to work on this task 5 minutes at a time, and you will be able to get it done. But for people who that is their only hurdle is task initiation, what happens is they set the 5-minute timer. They've told their brain, hey, we only need to work on this for 5 minutes. And if we hate it, we can walk away. Then your brain's like, okay, I suppose we can do this. And you get started. And usually once you get started, your brain's like, not so bad. Let's keep going. And then you can keep going. And that's why just being able to get yourself over that initial hurdle of the blank page or the row that hasn't been knitted at all. It's just 2 pieces of yarn that you're trying to put together. Or the blinking cursor that you're looking at and you're like, okay, I just need some words, even if they're bad words, right? To get yourself over that initial hurdle of, I need to have something there, because once your brain sees progress, it's more likely to want to continue the progress. Now, are there other things at play that are going to impact this? Absolutely. And we're going to talk about some of those in the upcoming videos. We're going to talk about what happens when you get it started, but you can't finish it. What are the things that are blocking you there? Because that is partially tied to your task initiation. It's also tied to some of those other executive function skills. So I hope you found this helpful in understanding task initiation. If you did find it useful, please hit like, subscribe, share it with somebody else, and I will see you in the next one.